Hi, my name's Tony Chapman. I'm the host of Chatter That Matters. In this age of noise, I cut through the chaos and confusion to focus on what matters most to your life and your livelihood. And on this episode, I chat with...
So my next guest is Mairead Lavery. She's the CEO of EDC, Export Development Canada. We're very lucky to have her. Born in Northern Ireland, she came over, joined Bombardier, managed a number of complex roles. 2015, we were lucky again. She became a Canadian citizen, joined the EDC, and recently became the first woman in 95 years to manage that portfolio. What I love about her and reading her story is not only is she passionate about Canadian business, both internationally and domestically, it's her value system. We're going to spend some time talking about how does things like sustainability, the environment, gender equality, and human rights play into Canada and our economy. Mairead, welcome to Chatter That Matters.
Thanks, Tony. Great to have the invite and delighted to be with you today.
So passionate about Canadian business, and the first part of your portfolio is helping us grow internationally. Why is trade so important to our economy?
Well, Tony, trade's so important because we just have such a small local economy. We're only 35 million people, and we can't sustain ourselves just with that size of population. So we have to look outside of our borders and see what other opportunities are there. The world is a big place, and Canada has a place to play in that world.
So I understand within the G7, we have more free trade agreements than any other country. With that comes opportunities, but also risk. Can you explain the difference and why?
We're actually the only G7 member that has free trade agreements with every other member of the G7. And we have 14 trade agreements that cover 50 markets around the world. So right there, Tony, that's the opportunity. It's 1.5 billion consumers for which we have agreed rules of trade. We have preferential access. So that's a very big opportunity compared to the size of Canada. Now, the challenge with that is, of course, it's reciprocal. It's two-way trade. Our own market is an attractive market for others to sell to. So we have to be competitive at home, and that will help us be competitive abroad.
These countries have the advantage of scale. Some might have a currency advantage. What advice do you bring Canadian business to determine what kind of advantages we can have when we go fishing in their pond?
There's advantages at very many different levels. First of all, there's a Canadian brand, and it speaks to values. So many people reflect on Canadian values of transparency, of ease of doing business, of the importance of relationships, of not letting down your consumers, and that carries through the Canadian brand. Then we have world-leading industries with companies in them that have opened up markets around the world, and that their products are very well known. And we have industries that are emerging. Clean technology would be one of those. I'll give you gaming as an example, where Canada is one of the world leaders in gaming, which is a new emerging industry. And then there's the companies themselves, the actual attitude of Canadian companies, their entrepreneurs, how they engage in doing business, bilingualism, many things that are very attractive in different markets. And those values and Canadian values all play into buyer preferences. And to me, that's the Canadian advantage around the world.
So what does the EDC do in terms of making sure that not only is the Canadian brand our best foot forward when we're international, but companies in Canada that want to export understand that they're representing more than their business, that there's a higher purpose, that we've got this intangible, these soft qualities that are so important when countries are deciding who they want to do business with?
We feel we're very fortunate every day to represent Canadian companies because as Canada's export credit agency, we're actually able to be the integrator in between foreign companies and Canadian companies. So we're here to help them with the knowledge that they need to go to these markets. We're here to help them reduce the risk. International trading is still risky. We're here to make sure they get paid for the goods that they send abroad. We're here to try and help them make connections to buyers in other countries. There are many studies that show that companies that export to more markets with more products do better than companies of a similar size that stay local and only trade domestically. So we want companies to really leverage that advantage and have that opportunity. So at EDC, that's what we're all about. We're here to try and help companies engage in that process.
How do you give them sort of that sense of courage and conviction that they have the ability to go beyond their domestic market or even maybe south of the border and start thinking about the world is their oyster. There's 1.5 billion people we have these deals with that would be receptive to what they have to offer. How do you get them over that sort of impasse?
There's no silver bullet, but there's lots of ways we can help. We can bring them knowledge, like what does it mean to be environmentally friendly and green? We can help them understand international standards. Knowledge is a great leveler to actually building confidence. But then we have to make sure that they're able to get paid. We have to make sure they have the financial capacity. We can help them with working capital. If they want to put inventory abroad, we can help them do that. And above all, what I really talk to small companies about is needing a plan and needing to make sure that they have not only considered the opportunities, but the risks, and that we help them mitigate, either expand the opportunity or mitigate the risk. Having partners that can help ease the transition or the thinking or the process, that's really important to small companies.
So Mairead, my last question for you is that as you're sort of carrying Canada's capitalism abroad, but you're also very passionate about a higher purpose than just simply profit. You talk about social responsibility, human rights, gender equality, diversity. How do you blend those two together to ensure that we're not just doing business, we're doing the right kind of business, the kind of business that would make all Canadians proud?
Doing good business is good for business. When people ask me that question, I give them the example of the environment. Just the outpouring of protests by our younger generation vis-a-vis climate change and what's going on in the environment. Our job at EDC is to try and help companies get ahead of that trend or see where things are going and understand that if we don't protect the world that we live in that instance, there won't be a world to trade in. I mean, we're living in a world where the United Nations has built the Sustainable Development Goal framework, 17 goals to improve the world by 2030. And corporations have to come to the table, individuals have to come to the table, and government has to come to the table. It won't be any one of those three. So EDC, being a Crown corporation, is really at that intersection of corporations and government, and can we truly help therefore both those entities move forward? And fundamentally, that's where consumers' preferences are going, and that's why doing good is good for business. That's what consumers will want in the future, and that's what will make companies and individuals sustainable into the future.
Chatting with Mairead Lavery, she's the CEO of EDC. She is from Northern Ireland. So happy that she's in Canada, Canadian citizenship, because she's so passionate about our economy and taking that economy globally. We have 1.7 billion people. And what I heard today from Mairead is this. Number one, there's something very special about the Canadian brand. It's sought after, it's aspirational. People want to be part of it. Second thing is, the world's our oyster. People are going to want to fish in our pond, but we have 1.7 billion people out there with free trade agreements. There's people like EDC and the trade commissioners and everything that she's put in place to give us a good chance of putting our best foot forward. The third and most important thing is that there is a higher purpose. And maybe Canada, over any other country, has the ability to stand tall and say, yes, we're a capitalist society. Yes, we're talking about democracy and an economy, but most importantly, though, if we don't sustain the planet, none of this matters. Mairead, thank you so much for being part of Chatter That Matters.
Thank you, Tony. It was a delight.